start time. Jim, how are you? Good to see you again. And welcome. Tonight, I thought we would talk a little about hamburgers. There's some interesting ideas that I discuss in my new book, and some techniques that I employ in the Meathead method. And I thought we'd talk about those things. I thought perhaps we'd start off with a little bit of safety talk. You know, um, when you take beef, if you get a steak, often during the slaughtering process, bacteria can get on the surface of the steak. It comes from the hide of the animal. Before they're slaughtered, they're in a confined area where there's very little grass, there's dirt, dust, the animals are pooping, and it's pretty easy for bacteria to get on the hide of the animal. After the animal is slaughtered, which theoretically is done painlessly, the blood is drained, and the butchers then start breaking down the carcass. And they begin usually by making a slit down the chest and belly. And they have to be careful not to puncture the intestines because they're full of fecal matter, and fecal matter is almost always contaminated with variations of E. coli and other bugs that can make you sick or kill you. And there's some of that stuff on the hide, and it gets on the knife, and as they're butchering the steak, it can get on the surface of the steak. But the good news is the bacteria are fairly large, and they can't get down into the center of the steak. They're pretty much confined to the surface. So the minute you start cooking them, they're dead. They all die at 165 in about 2 seconds. At lower temperatures, it takes a little longer for them to die, but you throw them on your grill or in a frying pan or on a griddle, and they all die rapidly. So the interior is safe. They can't get in. Now the exterior is safe because you've nuked them with energy, with heat. So it's not a problem on a steak or, beef ribs or a brisket. They're all cooked to safe temperatures. Heat kills. Heat is your friend. But if you take that steak and you grind it, now any bacteria, any contaminants that are on the surface get distributed evenly through the grind. So if you make a patty, a burger, there can very easily be contamination down in the center where there wouldn't be on a whole muscle steak. So you have to cook the burger to a safe temp in the 155 to 165 range. That will kill just about anything. But there are some workarounds. If you really want a medium rare steak, there's a couple of things you can do. My favorite technique is to take that steak and buy it like a chuck steak, for example. Chuck steaks are typically about 80% lean, 20% fat. And that's a good place to start. You can take a chuck steak, it's cut from the chuck, which is up by the shoulder, and you can dunk it for 10-20 seconds in boiling water. Now what you've done is you've killed anything that's on the surface. You've pasteurized it. Now the surface will turn gray, but it doesn't affect the flavor. When you grind it, the interior, which is quite rosy and bright, will overwhelm the grayness, and it's not going to affect the flavor, the texture, anything. And you can now make your patties and cook it to 135, 140, which is medium rare, medium, and it'll still be pink in the center, but it's pasteurized. It's safe. So that's my favorite technique. Now, of course, another technique is you can buy irradiated burgers. There are a couple of companies that'll sell them. And these are burgers where they're ground and formed into patties, and then the they're exposed to gamma radiation. Um, this is, right now you're looking at me on your computer screen, and your computer screen is emitting radiation. If you have a light on in your room, it's emitting radiation. Radiation is all around you. Uh, we somehow associate radiation with something dangerous, but very little radiation is dangerous. Um, X-rays are dangerous. Gamma rays are dangerous if you put them on your chest or head or arms or whatever. But they don't stay on the meat. They go through the meat, they kill the bacteria, and there's no residual. There's no radiation left in the meat. It doesn't glow. It's not like uranium or something like that you're eating. It's a perfectly safe process, and you can buy your irradiated meat and you can eat it raw because it's been pasteurized. It's safe. So you want to be careful with ground beef. It can easily be contaminated, can easily be dangerous or risky, shall we call it. The risk is not huge, but it's there, and you don't want to send your kids or grandma to the hospital on Labor Day party or whatever. So, I like the dip it in boiling water technique if you must cook it pink or rosy in the center. Now, let's talk about different kinds of burgers and different ways of cooking them. I like to think of the diner burger as the quarter pounder. That's 4 ounces, and it's a pretty thin burger. And a lot of people use them to make a double-decker, double. Then I like to think of the pub burger as the 6-ouncer. It's thick enough that it's got maybe a ½ inch to 3/4 of an inch thick, and it's big enough to fill a bun. And then there's the steakhouse burger, 8-9 ounces. It's a full meal. 8 ounces, that's ½ a pound. And that's a pretty good sized burger. You read these on the internet, you see how to cook a steak. Here's how to cook a steak. Well, here's how to cook a burger. The way you cook a burger is different from each of these different. It's the thickness and the weight that determines how you cook them. For example, the quarter pounders, a lot of them are really best when cooked on a flat top, on a griddle, or in a frying pan. And what's really caught on lately and very popular, especially because these griddles, these home flat tops, which a lot of restaurants use. A lot of restaurants cook their burgers on a flat metal surface. Gas burners underneath the metal surface. They get the temp up to around 375, 400, and they'll make a ball out of the burger. Say we're going to do a diner burger, 1/4 ounce. You'll get a 1/4 ounce of meat. You can weigh it if you want. And they slap it on the hot metal surface and let it sit for just a second, so the bottom of that ball starts to change. It starts to chemically react because of the heat, and it starts to turn brown a little bit. And then they smash it, and you can smash it with a spatula, but it's kind of hard because spatulas are flexible. A lot of folks use a heavily weighted burger smasher, or you can smash it with a spatula and then press down on it with the butt end of another spatula. But you really want to smash it flat as you can get it, and work the spatula or whatever device you're using around the edges so that you get frilly and thin edges. What we're after now is we're after a good dark brown surface. And I can't tell you how long to leave it there. You don't want to move it, because how long you leave it there to get that good dark brown mahogany surface depends on the temperature. So you'll have to experiment a little bit with your particular setup. If you're using a cast iron pan on a pellet smoker, it'll be different than if you're using a flat top Blackstone or another type of griddle. So you need to experiment a little to see how long you leave it there to get a good dark brown surface. Then it's time to flip it. Now, I take my spatula and I have a grinder in my basement, for grinding and for sharpening knives and stuff. And I sharpen the front edge of my spatula. I want it as sharp as a knife blade because that smash burger is going to stick to the metal. Protein and metal like each other so much they like to stick together. So I sharpen my spatula, get a good angle on it, and work it gently under the burger because I don't want to leave any of that beautiful brown surface on the grill. I want it to stay on the burger. So I work it gently and slowly around until I can lift it all off and then flip it. And then brown the other side. You smash the edges to get them down in contact with the metal. Now, something fun to do at this stage is to do a variation on what they call the Oklahoma burger. And that is you take a sweet onion or a white onion, yellow onion will work, and you slice it thin. If you have a device that allows you to slice burgers really thin. Yeah, Jim's jumping in, says he puts parchment paper between the burger and the smashing spatula because sometimes it'll stick to the spatula, or they sell these. It's like a cast iron disc with a handle on it, designed for smashing. I find that a little parchment paper works just fine. Parchment paper is essentially paper. It's not parchment like they use for the Declaration of Independence. It's got silicone embedded in it. That works just fine. I find that it works pretty well just to take the spatula and get oil on it. You know, when that burger is cooking, or you might before you throw that burger down, sprinkle a little oil on there to help it cook and keep it from sticking. But I get oil on my spatula, and when I press down on it, the meat doesn't stick to it too much. But the parchment paper is a really good trick, and a lot of people use it. Now, if you're going to get an Oklahoma burger, you slice the onion really thin, and now you can put it on the griddle where there's a little oil, or the oil from the meat has come out, and then you flip the burger on top of those onions. So the onions brown and the meat starts to brown, and the flavor and the fragrance of the browning onions, which you know is a great taste and smell, penetrates into the meat. Now, it's not going to get quite as dark as the other side did because the meat is not in intimate contact with the metal. But it's a really great technique that was perfected in Oklahoma and makes a really nice tasting burger. Or you can just brown the onions on the side and pile them on when you're done. So that's the smash burger or the onion burger. And they become quite popular. A lot of people do two of them and stack them. And you can always put a slice of cheese on top. I think if you ask any burger aficionado, any chef who makes burgers, what kind of cheese to use, they all tell you Kraft Singles. Good old American. Well, it's really not cheese. It's not labeled cheese. To be labeled cheese, it has to be at least 50% cheese. The Kraft Singles has other compounds in there that help it melt. It's a processed food, but by golly, it's, the flavor and the texture and the melting makes it perfect for a burger. You can try other cheeses. You can go for a Gouda, you can go for cheddar. I have somewhere on AmazingRibs.com a list of the best melting cheeses. Just go to AmazingRibs.com, click on the magnifying glass, and type in melting cheeses, and you'll find them. And you can play with your own cheese blends. Some people like blue cheese. I'm not crazy about blue cheese on a burger, but you can always throw some mushrooms on the griddle. Okay, and usually if you're doing a diner burger, it's a good idea to do two burgers. Now you go from 4 ounces to 8 ounces, and that's pretty good meat. Yeah, okay. P. Kunis is saying pepper jack is lovely. Yeah, I agree. And some of these cheeses that have things like jalapeno embedded in them, that's really nice. And now you get into the whole question of what kind of toppings and bottomings. Are you going to use tomato? Hey, tomatoes are in season right now. We made a caprese type salad for dinner tonight, which is just a tomato salad. Fantastic, great sweet tomatoes, and lettuce, bacon if you want, bacon burgers. I mean, you can have fun, whatever you want on top. Now, go to AmazingRibs.com and look at the burger section. I have a recipe for a sauce, a burger sauce, and it's really good. It's basically it starts with red Kansas City style barbecue sauce instead of ketchup, mayonnaise, a little bit of mustard, a little bit of hot sauce, and the ratios I've experimented with, and it's really good. I call it burger glop. So when you go to the website, just type in glop and it'll take you there. The other thing is it's really nice to toast the buns, and you can just paint the bun with either melted butter, throw some butter in the microwave and paint it with melted butter, or margarine works fine. The trick here is to get it smashed down onto the metal so it toasts. Todd Pisarski is recommending guacamole. Yeah, in fact, we did burgers the other night, and instead of guacamole, we just put thin slices of avocado right on the burger. It really works nice. Matt and Jenny Bykowski are here, and he's off topic here. He's saying it was nice to see me on America's Test Kitchen podcast with Dan and Brian. I was on there last week. Go to America's Test Kitchen. It's such a great magazine and such a great TV show. And we were together for a good 40 minutes. A lot of really good questions. They asked me stuff that people don't often ask me. And he laughs. He says, it was gentlemen not mentioning how often they use my techniques and information without crediting me. It's interesting that you've noticed that. I have noticed it too. It was really cool, though, touring their office and their test kitchens and meeting some of the people I see on TV. It's really cool. So, back to the burgers. All right. My favorite burger is the pub burger or the 6-ounce burger. And I prefer those on a grill. I prefer to grill them either over charcoal or gas grill. I like to get, again, a nice, good, dark brown surface. And for these, I use a thermometer. You have to come in from the side to get a good reading. I take them up to about 140, which is medium. They're pink. They're very juicy at that level. And I use pasteurized beef that I make by dipping it in boiling water. If you got here late, we talked about how to pasteurize beef by dipping it in boiling water for about 10 seconds. So that works really great. And I grind it myself. All the best burger joints grind their meat fresh every day. Now, you can still buy ground meat from the butcher shop, but never buy something that's labeled hamburger. Good old hamburger is lips and assholes. It's just whatever's available. It's the best burgers come from solid muscle meat, steak, and many of them come from the chuck, which is the shoulder area. P. Kunis is saying that Burger Glop is in my book, page 188 of my first book, Meathead The Science of Great Barbecue and Grilling. Thanks, I forgot about that. I've written so much stuff I can't remember where everything is. Um, yeah, it's really a good recipe. Thank you, Mr. Ms. Kunis, whomever you are. Um, Now, let's go back to your meat type and source. Um, a lot of folks think that a blend of chuck and brisket or skirt, brisket and skirt are harder working and they're a little more flavorful. I don't think it makes a huge difference. But here's something that I've been fiddling with that goes against all the laws. And Matt and Jenny, if you saw the America's Test Kitchen, you heard me talk about this. Um, Pete, okay, thank you, Pete. Um, the uh, the standard blend is 80-20. That is 80% lean, 20% fat. You'll often find ground meat at 90-10, and that's very lean. Look, burgers are not diet food. You want fat. Fat is flavor. So you want it a minimum of 80-20. And you can, if you can't find meat that was already ground to 80-20, often if you ring the bell back by the meat counter, a butcher will come out and you can say to them, I want some freshly ground chuck 80-20 blend. And with luck, they'll go in the back and grind it for you. It may take them a few minutes, so you go around the rest of the store and buy your breakfast cereal and your milk and stuff and come back, and now you'll have freshly ground. But all the top burger joints grind their meat fresh every morning. Once you grind it, you're exposing it to oxygen, and it starts to oxidize. It starts to turn gray, and also it alters the flavor. You may not even see it turning gray, but it alters the flavor. So the fresher, the better. 80-20 is your pretty much standard around the world. But there's a little bar near me, and every time I drive by it, I smell incredibly good smelling burgers. And they smell better than anybody else's. And I go in there, and they're doing, 4 to 5 ounce burgers. But one thing that they're doing is they're breaking the law of burgers. They throw the burger down on a gas grill, and after it starts to cook and the fat starts to melt, they smash it with their spatula. Well, all the books tell you never to do that because the fat drips out, the juices drip out, and you end up with a dry burger. Well, their burgers always taste great and they smell great, but they're dry. The reason they taste great and smell great is that fat goes down and hits the gas burners, or if you're using charcoal, hits charcoal, and it vaporizes. And it goes back up and lands on the surface of the meat. And that adds flavor, and it's a marvelous flavor. So I'm saying to myself, how do I get that smell and flavor on my burgers without drying them out? And if you're following me here, you know the answer. Go to a 70-30 blend. Get 70% lean, 30% fat. Now that's a lot of fat, but you're not cooking burgers every night. So when you're gonna have a burger, have a great burger. And when you get a 70-30 blend, you can smash it gently with your spatula, and that fat and the juices will run out, hit the hot coals or the flame, vaporize, come back up, flavor your burger, and you'll lose about 10% of its moisture, and now you're down to 80-20, which is just fine. So you've sacrificed a little bit of fat and juice, but you're not ending up with a dry burger. Now you got to be careful because 70-30 burgers tend to be a little crumbly and they might start breaking up. You got to play with it a little bit, but try it. I think you'll find that you'll get a more flavorful burger. And that was one of the topics we talked about on America's Test Kitchen. And to my knowledge, I'm the only guy out there advocating this kind of approach, but I think it works. I think it works pretty well. So let's see, we're talking about burger meat. So, I mentioned don't buy anything labeled hamburger. That's just the lowest quality that you can get. Um, and ground meat is possibly also, if it just says ground beef or something, look for ground chuck or something specifically labeled. Or, as I say, ask the butcher to grind it for you. Um, what else? I've often said that knowing your butcher is as good as knowing your stockbroker. In fact, I've been known to go to my local grocery. I don't go to a butcher shop most of the time. I've been known to go to my local grocery around lunchtime and bring in a couple of slabs of ribs because they take a lunch break. There's a picnic table out back. They all sit around the picnic table. And I bring in a couple of slabs of ribs for them, and they remember me. And I've walked in there one day while shopping, and they'll call me over and say, "Hey, we just got a load of ribeye steaks in." They're labeled USDA choice, but they're just so heavily marbled. They're really USDA prime quality. You want some? Yes. So get to know your butchers, and maybe bless them with a slab of ribs or something, and it'll pay off for you. Okay. Now, the temperatures for doneness are pretty much the same as the temperatures for steaks. 130 to 135 is medium rare. Anything under 130 is rare. You've really got to be careful about rare and even medium rare burgers. The likelihood of getting sick is low, but it's much higher than just eating a steak. So try this pasteurization technique. Buy a chuck steak. And something else I do is when I get a brisket, I trim a lot of that fat. Briskets have a lot of surface fat on one side. Or if I buy, for Christmas, I always buy a huge 7-bone prime rib. And there's just a lot of surface fat on there. And that surface fat cannot penetrate the meat. Meat is 75% water. Fat is oil. Oil and water don't mix. It just sits on the surface. It melts, drips off. And then when people are served meat that has a big, thick fat layer, the first thing they do is cut the fat layer off. And if you've put a rub or seasoning on it, there goes your rub or seasoning. So I'll trim my briskets or my prime ribs pretty close to the meat, maybe 1/8 inch or 1/4 inch of fat left there, and that'll melt significantly, so it's not a lot of fat. But that trim, I will freeze. And so if I buy a chuck steak and grind it myself, and by the way, old-fashioned hand grinders are very cheap on Amazon. They're cast aluminum. If you have a food processor, you can use that. I talk about this on the website. You can, if you have a KitchenAid, there's an attachment that you can put on the KitchenAid and grind it, and you make sausages that way. But then you can just grind your own fat and mix it in and come up with your 70-30 blend yourself. Okay. And then finally is the steakhouse burger, which is 8 ounces. I know there's a local joint here that does 9 ounces just because they got to be bigger than everybody. That's a lot of meat. But with that big meat, now you want to make, by the way, you need to make your patties 4.5 to 5 inches in size. Now your typical burger bun is 4 inches. So if you make it 4.5 to 5 inches, it'll shrink to fit the bun. And a lot of people like to make their smash burgers even bigger than the bun, so it's kind of hanging out. You start with 8 ounces of ground meat, and here's a great chance to go 70-30. Something else. If you want to season it by mixing in garlic or onion powder or something, that's up to you. You can chop onions and put them in there, or jalapenos, whatever you want. I wouldn't go crazy and turn it into a meatloaf, but do not salt ground meat. When you do, it changes the protein and it makes it really sticky and they clump up, and there's no pockets for the juices to hide in. And that's something else. When you're working your burger meat, don't work it too much. Make your patty and try to be gentle so that there are air pockets in there so that the juice will be trapped inside the burger rather than come out and squeeze out. You can salt the burger just before you cook, but you salt the exterior, not the interior. Do not mix in salt. There's some good illustrations on my website that show what happens when you do that. And Kenji Lopez Alt has duplicated the tests and shows the same results. So sprinkle the salt on the last minute before you're cooking. Okay. We were up to steakhouse burgers, which are 8 ounce. And those I almost always cook over charcoal or gas. Now, remember, when you're cooking, the thicker the meat is, the lower the temperature you need to cook, because it takes a long time for the energy to penetrate to the center. So diner burger, 4 ounces, you can give it all she's got, Scotty, and sear the snot out of it, flip it and sear the snot out of it, and it'll be cooked thoroughly throughout. You're not going to have any pink in the center. But if you take an 8 ounce burger, which can be 3/4 of an inch to an inch thick, you need to dial it down a little bit so that the energy has time to get to the center and cook the center. But I still want, with almost all foods, you need to keep in mind, cooking the surface and cooking the interior are 2 separate steps, 2 separate procedures. This is where reverse sear, it comes in very handy. With an 8 ounce burger, you can set up your grill in 2 zones, a hot zone and a zone that doesn't have any flame or charcoal under it. And you start your burger away from the direct heat, where it's sitting over on grates and there's no flame, no coals below it. And it's warming gently with convection airflow. And when it gets up to about 120 or so, now you move it over the high heat. You lift the lid so that the energy is working on one side and one side only. And you pound that side with the hottest energy you can get from the direct heat side and get it dark brown, and then flip it, get it dark brown, and flip frequently. Now, here we go. We're breaking the rules again, but there's really good research. And in my new book, I share some of that research. Even a food scientist, I think University of Minnesota, did this research and proved that frequent flipping is better. It cooks faster, it cooks more evenly, and you can keep the center together. Jim is asking, do I grind the fat trimmings before you freeze them or after? No, after. Remember, every time you grind, you're creating air contact, and air contact means oxidation. And fat oxidizes faster than muscle. So you could get away with grinding the meat and freezing that, but if you grind fat, there's a chance it'll oxidize, so I don't. Okay. What else? Some people like to put a thumbprint in the big burgers because if you've cooked them, they tend to swell up in the center. The moisture expands, and so you get a hump in the center. That never really bothered me. I mean, it's going on a bun. Beware of your bun choices. I mean, I really love pretzel buns, but they're kind of hard, and as you chew through them, you're putting more pressure on the burger, and the juices come squirting out. But I love brioche buns, but they're very tender, and when they get wet from the juices, They fall apart very rapidly. So fiddle with your bun choices, and come up with something that you really like. Tell me what your favorite bun choices are, guys. Share with me. Um, what else? Um, I'm a lettuce and tomato guy. I try to get as ripe a tomato as I can. If I can get a big one that's about the same size as the burger, that's perfect. Lettuce, I just put one leaf down. My wife loads it up with 2 or 3 leaves. Um, okay, Pete says he did frequent flipping tonight on a skirt steak, which is skirt steak is so hard to cook properly because by the time you get a good dark Maillard reaction on the outside, it's almost always well done in the center. And there's 2 types of skirt steak, by the way. There's inside skirt and outside skirt. And the outside skirt is a little thicker and a little better, more tender. I recommend the outside skirt if you can get it. And he says he got a really good dark Maillard on the outside and medium rare inside by flipping often. Okay, so there you go. I like to cook my skirt steak on a charcoal chimney. And this is something I talk about in my new book, The Meathead Method. That's a popular technique I use that others have adapted. But I'll take a charcoal chimney and fill it up about halfway with charcoal. So you have 5 or 6 layers of charcoal. That's a lot of concentrated energy. It can get 800 to 1,000 degrees at the top of that baby. And then I put a grate on top. I'll pull out a grate from the bottom of my Weber kettle or something. And actually, a couple of people are actually now making grates that sit on top of the charcoal chimney. And then I'll throw the skirt steak on top of this charcoal chimney. And that is it's like the back end of an F-35. And then you got to flip every minute or so. But when you do, it cooks the exterior really fast. And it'll leave the interior medium rare to medium. I forgot another technique. You can cook a frozen burger. And I know some of you have done this. You know, a big 4th of July party, you go down to Walmart and you buy a box of frozen hockey pucks. You don't have to defrost them. In fact, the fact that the center is cold delays its heating, delays its cooking. So you can still brown the exterior and get the interior medium rare. And by the way, the thicker the burger, you need to close the lid so it roasts from above and below. Thin burgers, you can leave the lid up because you just want to hit the exterior. You're fighting to make sure you don't overcook the interior. Bob Allman says he likes Kaiser and brioche. Yeah, brioche is my favorite for the taste, but it's just that I'm not bragging here, but my burgers are juicy, and that juice the brioche, by the time I'm halfway through, it's just falling apart. Jim says toasting the buns helps them resist juice infiltration. I've not experienced that. But when you build the burger, you can do stuff like put your caramelized onions. If you do caramelize, I have a recipe on the website for onion jam. And that's a caramelized onion with some bacon in there. And you can put that on the bottom bun. And that's got oil in it, and that will help keep the juices off the bun. So that's a good part. If you put the tomato right on the bun, all that juice is immediately going to soak into the bun and assist its destruction. So you need to give some thought to how you stack things. Also, keep in mind when you hold a burger. Where's my camera? There it is. You have 4 fingers on one side and 1 finger on the other side. So the side that has the most stuff stacked on top, you want that to have the 4 fingers. And sometimes I've been known to, flip the burger upside down. So I have the tomato and the lettuce and the burger glop and stuff all on the top. Um, and by the way, caramelized onions. I like raw onions on my burger, and in spring when you can get, Valdosta or really sweet Georgia onions or Walla Wallas, and they're huge. You can cut them and just one thin slice and just lay it on there. I like that a lot. Um, what else, guys? Tuna Killer says potato buns is his favorite. Yeah, they're good. They're good. What else can we talk about burgers here? By the way, we're not restricted to burgers. We've already been at this for 30 minutes plus 40 minutes. If you've got questions or something else you want to talk about, fling them. Let's have them. I mean, if you want to ask me about a grill or thermometers, um, cooking something else, you know, let me have it. And let's see if we can get to the bottom of whatever your issue is. Horseradish? Bob, you put horseradish on your burger. Isn't that interesting? I'm a horseradish fan, and I've been known to put it on my hot dogs, but I've not put it on a burger, and I might have to try it because we grow horseradish. By the way, horseradish is really easy to grow, and once you get it started, you can't kill it. I mean, it's like a weed. It starts to spread. And you dig it up, it looks like a carrot, only it's very dirty on the outside, so you got to scrape the exterior, get the skin off like you might a carrot, and then you grind it on a box grater or a one of those little shredders, and add a little bit of white vinegar, distilled vinegar, not anything fancy, and a pinch or two of salt, and give it overnight. And it's just as good as any store bought. In fact, it's better because it's fresh. Yeah, okay, Pete, thank you. Boy, you've got my book handy, don't you? Bacon Onion Jam is on page 195 of my first book. I didn't remember I put it in there. There it is, Meathead, The Science of Great Barbecue and Grilling. So there you go. That book, by the way, has sold 250,000 copies. Most cookbooks are doing great if they can sell 10, 20, 30,000. So and Southern Living magazine called it one of the 100 best cookbooks ever written, right up there with Julia Child and Jacques Pepin and the others. So it's a great book. Rich Leish is asking about what about sliders. I don't make sliders very often, but they're like a diner burger. They're very thin. The diner burger is quarter ounce. If you go to White Castle, they're maybe 2 ounces, 3 ounces, and they're cooked on top of onions. And so you really don't get a good dark brown on them. And me, I mean, I'm a Maillard guy. I want that dark brown all the time. So I don't have a lot of advice for you, Rich, on sliders. I don't cook them very often, and I haven't really done a deep dive on how to do it. I want a burger with some real meat in it. Troy Belanger is saying blended Mendez hot sauce is also good on burgers. Okay, I don't know that hot sauce. Boy, there's a lot of hot sauces out there. Bob is saying Brathaus in Madison years ago made killer burgers with horseradish. Okay. All right, Jim's off onto ribs, and he's asking an interesting question. And Bob, I see your question about smoked whitefish, so I'll come to you. I'm a big fish fan. Jim says baby back ribs usually perfect with 3-2-1 method. Right there, I'm gonna debate you. I hate the 3-2-1 method. It's just far too long for the meat to be in the foil. And the 3-2-1 method says you take the ribs and you put them in the smoker and you smoke them for 3 hours. Then you wrap them in foil or butcher paper for 2 hours, and then you take them back out and give them another hour. And I just think 2 hours is way too long um, in foil, and especially for baby backs. Baby backs, I think 311 will do just fine. Um, and you know what? Often I don't wrap them anymore. If I really want to impress somebody, it does improve. Absolutely improves. If you wrap them, it improves. It makes them more tender. But often I will just smoke them without wrapping them for 4 or 5 hours, and they're delicious and tender. And he's asking, but occasionally they take 2 hours longer to the desired level of tenderness. What are some factors that make some baby backs take longer? Well, here we go with thickness again. Thickness is always a factor in how long it takes something to cook. Now, baby backs, they come from the back of the animal. If baby backs are curved and one end of the bone is attached to the spine and the other end wraps around and is attached to the side ribs or the spare ribs or the St. Louis cut. But they lay underneath the muscle. All right, think about your back. Or there is a muscle that runs from your shoulder blades down practically to your hip. And you can feel it. It's a big, long tube. That's the longissimus dorsi. And the baby backs lie immediately under the longissimus dorsi. Now, typically, when they're butchered, because the longissimus dorsi is the loin muscle, and that's highly prized, that's expensive, and it's used for making chops and stuff. The butcher will typically cut the baby backs close to the bone, maybe a 1/4 inch on top of the bone. But some butchers will leave more. So if there's more meat on top, it's going to take longer to cook. And the other thing is, how do you know when they're done? Well, typically they're done in the 190 to 205 range. Depends on how you like them. I don't want them mushy, and that's why I don't like 2 hours wrapped. And what I will do is I will take a slab. It's very hard to measure the temperature on ribs because it's a very thin piece of meat, and you can stick the probe in there, and it's easily fooled by how close it is to the bone, how close it is to the surface. So it's very hard to get an accurate temperature reading off of ribs. And you know me, I love my thermometers, and I recommend them for just about everything. But I'll take the ribs and put them on my tongs and kind of bounce them from the center. And if they crack on the surface, there's a good chance they're done. At that time, I put the sauce on. I don't put any sauce on until they crack from bouncing. And that usually is 4 or 5 hours for baby backs, 5 hours, maybe 6 for spare ribs or St. Louis cut. So, Bob, you're asking about smoked whitefish. I absolutely adore. I was raised in Florida, and my dad and I went fishing almost every weekend. Now, whitefish is a cold climate fish, a lot from the Great Lakes. We didn't get much of that down there, but we did get some, and you can get any kind of fish you want smoked. And there's a company called Acme, believe it or not, Acme, that does a tremendous job with smoking. They're in Pompano Beach. I have visited their plant. And my wife and I are going to take a rare vacation. In a couple of weeks, we're going to drive around Lake Michigan. And there are several smokehouses still on Lake Michigan. And I'm planning on visiting a few of them. The key to smoking fish is they run 80 to 90% water. You just don't want to get it too hot, and you don't want to do them too long. I think if you can get them off in the 140 to 150 range, and they're marvelous. Excuse me. So, and I would fiddle with them. I would, smoke some at up to 145 and see. I mean, grilled fish, just plain throw it on the grill and cook it. That stuff is best 125 to 135. So you can even do smoked fish down that low. So play with it. Do some at 135, do some at 140. Get yourself like 4 or 5 whitefish. Set up your smoker. Typically, I recommend smoking just about everything at 225, but if you want to dial it down to 200 or so, fine. And smoke them all side by side and pull some off at 135, pull some off at 145, and sit down with a good friend or your spouse and taste them and decide which you like best. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, everybody, has their own preferences. Troy Belanger is recommending Brazilian hot sauce. I've never seen one. I've heard of Brazil. No, I'm not going to go there. But they're just. I mean, they're. It's easy to make your own hot sauces. I have a couple of hot sauce recipes on the website, and maybe they're in my book. I forget. But I've got one which has got Grand Marnier in it, which is really nice. You go out and buy yourself a bucket full of jalapenos or serranos, or go for something even hotter, and grind them up. You can simmer them. That's a good idea because it kills any surface bacteria, and it also extracts flavors. If you cook hot peppers too long, it does defang them. So you don't want to cook them too hot and too long. But you can simmer them in a little vinegar and do that outdoors. Hot peppers put capsaicin in the air. That's the stuff that cops use to subdue people. And it gets in your eyes and you're in trouble. Do it outdoors. I use a Dutch oven with some vinegar and some salt, and that's all you need. Chopped up hot pepper, vinegar, salt. You can then, when you're done, let it cool and serve it like that, or you can sift it, run it through a strainer and get all the solid particles out, or you can grind it, or you can run it through a food processor or a blender and make a slurry out of it. But it's really easy. I mean, your basic hot pepper, like your standard Tabasco, is just Tabasco peppers with distilled white vinegar and salt. I think that's all that's in there. Now, if you want to smoke the peppers, then you can get chipotle smoked. Then you can add things. Like I say, I did one with Grand Marnier. Onion is good to add. Or you can use a blend of peppers. Very easy to make your own hot sauce at home. Very little safety risk. And they're fun. And now you can, bottle them up and give them away for Christmas. Yeah, Troy is talking about always get fresh fish if you're going to smoke fish. You want it really fresh. And I'm in the Chicago area, and it's really hard to get fresh fish except from the Great Lakes, and there's not a lot of choice out of the Great Lakes. I think you guys probably know that fish is massive difference in quality between caught in Massachusetts and shipped to Chicago. The extra day or two makes a massive difference. So try to get them as fresh as you can. Find a good fishmonger. Troy says he's afraid of stinking up your grill. If the lid's down, it will put fish oil into the carbon residue on the lid, but that you should clean off every now and then anyhow. I mean, if you've got a lot of carbon residue, after a while it starts to fall off, and you don't want it on your steak or on your fish. I have an electric smoker. I'm not a big fan of electric smokers, but they're good for fish, and I use it only for fish. But I cook fish on my grill all the time, and no problem. I just make sure that I clean the grates really well. And by the way, there's a product on the market called Grill Rescue, and it's kind of like a sponge wrapped in fire hose type material. And you stick it in a bucket of water and you scrub your grill grates with it, and then it steams the grill grates, lets a lot of the flavor, the carbon, the fats off. And also, if you're afraid of stinking up your grill, make sure you clean both the top and the bottom of your grill because there's a lot of grease hanging on to the underside. So scrape them, and you know, you can just sprinkle some water on there before you scrape them. Pete, you are my man. Pete is telling me the Grand Marnier. No, that's a Grand Marnier glaze. There's some Grand Marnier shrimp in my new book that's awesome. And while I made the marinade for the shrimp with Grand Marnier, I used some on garlic bread, and it's killer, unbelievably good. It's maybe the best garlic bread I ever made. You know, there's always an asshole. Tarot Destroyer, you're an asshole. A big, flaming, stinking asshole. Get off of my feed here. We're having a nice conversation. We like to cook. Why would someone come in like that and befoul the conversation? Go look in a mirror and ask yourself what is wrong with me, because there's a lot wrong with you. Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to get off on that little rant there, but there's just a foul post from an idiot. Yeah, Cool J77's asking about black char on steaks versus a more of a brown Maillard reaction. You know, there's a restaurant not far from here called the Char House, and I won't go there because they're telling me right up front they're going to burn my steaks. Char, black, is carbon, and I don't think it's very tasty. But I like dark Maillard reaction. That's the chemical reaction that turns the surface of meat brown. Maillard reaction, I like it as dark as I can get it. I mean, you know, cordovan, mahogany. You mentioned that Chris Young is the one who has touched on this subject. I don't recall what he said, but yeah, I've seen him cook steaks and then pop them in a deep fat fryer to enhance the surface, but I don't think he's charring them. Okay. Mickey Lou's Barbecue has great burgers with vaporized drippings. They're in Marinette, Wisconsin. Well, I'm going to be in Wisconsin in a few weeks. Eat my way through Wisconsin and Michigan. So we're going to only do like 10 days, so I can't hit everything. And, you know, everybody has a neighborhood burger joint. There's a place just about 3 blocks from my house called Burger Antics. It makes incredibly good killer burgers on a flat top, 6 to 8 ounces. You know, it ain't that hard. And there's nothing like a great burger. What else you got, guys? Coming up on 8:30. That's an hour we've been at it now. If you got a few more questions, I'm happy to take them. Otherwise, early to bed, early to rise guy here. I go to bed early. I read. I read a lot of fiction, by the way. I'm reading The Underground Railroad now by the Pulitzer Prize winner. Oh God, I'm drawing a blank on the guy's name. How can I draw a blank on the author's name? He reads my website, and a Pulitzer Prize winner praised my website. So Kavasite says I need a better webcam. He's recommending the OBSBot. I had an OBSBot, and it followed me as I moved around, and it died. And it was expensive, and it died. So I'm using, what am I using here? I forget. It's called Mevo. I'm using a Mevo. I think it's pretty good. I'm using Ecamm Live software, which may be degrading the quality of the video, but it's not my face you're after, is it? Um, it's the barbecue conversation. So appreciate the comments, but I'm happy with the Mevo. It's working pretty well, and it battery operated. I can take it off. I can walk around with it. Um, so. And the OBSBot, I'm sorry, I won't buy another one. It died on me, and it was past warranty, and I mean, it just dropped dead. I sent it to them, and they pronounced it dead. Yeah, Bob's saying check out the perch fish fries in Wisconsin. He misses them. Years ago, we drove from Ithaca, New York, where I was teaching at Cornell. My wife was a grad student, and we drove to Chicago, and we went through Canada, and we stopped in a little town called Erio, Erieau, Erio, and it's a little fishing village on Lake Erie, I think, and they had these fishing boats. They're wooden boats, very high sides, very small cabins, and they were fishing Lake Erie, and that there's still commercial fisheries on the Great Lakes. And we stopped there and went down to the docks, and it was late in the day, and the boats were coming in and unloading their catch. And we rented a cabin on the beach, had an incredible sunset. And we asked one of the captains, where is there a restaurant nearby that is buying your fresh fish that we should go to? And he told me about a place. It was like 2 blocks from where we were staying, and it was just breaded and fried. Oh my goodness, just a very simple lake perch, whitefish perch, marvelous stuff. Kava, thank you. He said he's bought my books and studied the websites. Thank you very much. I appreciate the business. We have no big corporate partner. I mean, my favorite culinary website is Serious Eats, and they are owned by Meredith Publishing, which is a huge multinational publishing company. We don't have that. I own AmazingRibs.com, lock, stock, and barrel, 100%. And I built it with money from my pocket, and it's making us a living now. I mean, we have a small team, and we haven't had any turnover, so I guess I'm paying them all right. And good stuff. Very happy with it. I should tell you, I haven't made a big deal of this. I haven't publicized it, but I've been working the classic entrepreneurial hours, 60 hours a week for almost 40, 50 years. I've owned my own businesses, and I'm starting to wear down. I'm 76 years old, and I don't have many regrets, but I do regret that I haven't taken many vacations and done a lot of stuff with my wife. So I'm dialing back. I'm cutting back. I've cut back from 60 hours a week to about 30 now, and my goal is to get down to about 20. But the good news is I have a really good team. Clint Cantwell is running the website now, and Dave Joachim has won numerous awards for cookbook writing, and he is the editorial director. Max Good is the grill and smoker tester. You probably have heard me mention him. He's been with us for 10 years or more. Bill McGrath tests thermometers. Husky runs the Pitmaster Club. And if you haven't tried the Pitmaster Club, you really should. There's so much good stuff in there. 120 broadcast quality videos, instructional videos, 6 or 7 free ebooks, and you can get a 30-day free trial We don't ask for your credit card, so after the free trial is up, we're not gonna ding you. If you buy my new book, you can get a 60-day free trial. So check it out. Take the free trial. It's really worthwhile. Um, Bob Allman says he takes my book on camping trips. Holy cow. I travel light when I go camping. I don't think I need my book. Um, Pete says, grew up going to the Brookfield Zoo in Chicago. Well, I'm guessing from that comment, you know that I live in Brookfield. I have a cage at the zoo. They won't let me cook the zebras. But no, I'm kidding. But it's really kind of cool. We're very close to the zoo. And on summer mornings with the windows open, we can hear the lions roar and we can smell zoodoo occasionally. Um, it's a great zoo, and it's right outside my back door, pretty much. It's about 2-3 blocks from my house. Okay. Keva is asking about the Weber kettle. Is it the best beginner barbecue / smoker? Yeah, I think it is. There's a lot of really good grills. There's one called the Slow and Sear. You might look into it. It's a Weber kettle knockoff, if you will. It's similar, but it's got a couple of, the kettle is great, but it hasn't really been improved significantly. I was just at Weber on Friday. We did a seminar up there on sous vide and barbecue grilling combined. Very interesting. We did briskets cooked at 3 different temperatures, and the 131 degree brisket came out medium rare, and it was very much like a steak. It was shocking how good it was. But in any case, I asked them, I said, can you please modify the kettle so we can raise and lower the charcoal? Because when I'm searing a steak, I want to raise it right up below the steak. And they said, we'll take it under consideration. I don't think we'll see that change. But yeah, the kettle is really versatile. It's big enough you can do a turkey on it. There's a gadget you can buy called the Slow and Sear. They make their own kettles, but they also make an insert for the kettle called the Slow and Sear. I think it's $110 or something. And it's absolutely necessary if you have a kettle. Spend the extra money because it helps you divide it in two zones for heating. And the charcoal zone piles the charcoal deep so it can make a great sear. Then there's a water dam that puts moisture in the air, which helps smoke stick. And then there's an indirect. Go to AmazingRibs.com. I've reviewed it in detail, and then you can order it from their website. We don't sell it, but there's a link that'll take you to their website. Really a great add-on. There's another really good beginner charcoal grill called the PK, the portable kitchen. It's cast aluminum and it's rectangular shape, which is really nice because it's really easy to set up in 2 zones. And the charcoal is up higher and closer to the meat. Those would be if you're just getting started and you're looking for a good grill, Weber kettle or PK. Both of them really good for both indirect and for direct. Troy's saying very nice things about the website and my books. I appreciate it. Well, I think we've got all the questions. Have I missed anybody's question? I don't see any in the list here. So if you don't mind, I'll excuse myself and call it a night and get a good night's sleep and go read my novel. And thank you very much for your attention and your time. And we do this every month on a Wednesday. I think it's the last Wednesday of the month, which this is. And I don't know what topic we'll take on. Let's see. I'll probably talk about tailgating. I love going to football games and tailgating, so maybe we'll do tailgating next month. So, thank you very much, and come by AmazingRibs.com. Check out the Pitmaster Club. Take the free trial and go on in there and have some fun. And keep cooking.